This is The Toss-Up, where an expert-line panel dissects the hottest stories within the world of sports. From some of the nation's strongest college programs right here in Bloomington to the games and moments that capture the world's attention, it's all right here on The Toss-Up. Right now, the Big Ten has 8 football teams that are already bowl eligible. Half of those teams are in the Big Ten East, which includes Ohio State and Penn State, who have combined to win 4 of the last 5 conference championships. They are bowl eligible, and so now that leaves 2 teams out of that list, perennial powerhouse Michigan, and yes, the Indiana Hoosiers. Several weeks ago on The Toss-Up, our panel concluded that the 2019 Hoosiers maybe, just maybe, make it to a bowl game this year. Now, the question is, which one? Indiana has 7 wins and counting, and briefly held a national ranking for the first time in 25 years. Much of the season is already behind us, but there's still so much more that can happen in the coming weeks. So, we're back with another football panel for you to break it all down. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Toss-Up. I'm joined here by my panel of football experts. We have Caleb Kaufman and Jack Grossman from the IDS, along with Griffin Gonzalez from the Hoosier Network. And now, to start off the show, I feel like there's a couple things I want to address. Jack, I'm starting over with you, actually.
All right, go ahead.
So you were on our first episode of The Toss-Up this season when we talked about IU football, and you got into an argument with IUS TV's own Stephen Walker, who we'll hear from a little later, and you said...
Do we really think that Indiana football, though, is going to go in and win at Nebraska? Is that a thing that happens?
It's a possibility.
Right, it's a possibility. So,
I mean, yeah, it's also a possibility that I'm going to go to the moon tomorrow.
How was that visit to the moon, Jack?
Yikes. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. You know, when you see the Earth from space, there is absolutely nothing like it. It is stunning. It is just literally a blue ball with some land mixed in.
And a Hoosier win, apparently, that weekend.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I give Stephen full props to that. That to this point is IU's biggest win of the season, even though that Nebraska team ended up being a lot worse than what people thought.
Yeah, and now, Griffin, I do have to come over to you.
I know.
Yeah, I'm sorry for doing this, but
I know.
You looked dead into the camera.
I did.
And you said...
If you are at home right now and you're tweeting #9WinIndiana, you need to delete Twitter. You're using it wrong. That's not okay. Listen.
So currently the Hoosiers have 7 wins. An 8th win likely against Purdue. That's what's projected. And then a possible bowl win. Even this Michigan game coming up soon is a possible win.
Mortal lock.
Yes, Caleb is calling it.
Caleb's
calling it a lock already.
This was my preseason pick in preseason articles for the IDS.
Okay. And you think I went off on Steven? Nothing compared to what I did to Caleb.
Yeah. So far, Caleb's the one that we're commending right now, which I never thought that would happen.
No.
Because I was a genius who wasn't on that first football panel to make an idiot of myself.
Hey.
Genius is an interesting word to use in this situation, but yes, Caleb. So Griffin, I want to go back to you because I want to address this a little bit. I'm not going to keep picking on you. I want to ask, what has changed about this Hoosier team, and where has this growth really come from that has led from a team that we said could win maybe 4 or 5 games to a team that's now already bowl eligible?
I would like to look at the camera now. I'd like to apologize. Glad you guys kept your Twitters. I was wrong. I apologize for that. Let me say this, though. I stopped believing. Because for 19 years, I had believed, and I've been let down for 18 of those years. This year, Indiana has shown that they are a legit team, that they're willing to fight, that the Tom Allen experiment that no one thought would work has worked. There were people last year calling Tom Allen a high school football coach of this state, not a college one. And I think that got to him. And I think he's showing that he can win at this level with guys just buying in and believing they can win each and out every single week. And I think I was wrong. I did not believe the 9-win Indiana hype. There's not there yet. I said, if I may, let's get to 6, then talk about 9-win Indiana. They got to 6, and I think this is possibly a 10-win Indiana team even. So we'll just have to wait and see. But, yeah, I mean, doubters got me back.
Quick question. Has Indiana football ever won 10 games in a season?
Jack, as the historian, I'm just going to let you answer the question.
That's a fair point. I think they had at some point.
The answer's no.
No, they've never done it.
They were 9-1 when they were like the best team in the Big Ten, right? They were tied. Have you guys heard this story? They were 9-1. They tied to be the best team in the Big Ten with another team, and they were like, well, IU's probably not going to be 9-1 ever again. Let's send them to the Rose Bowl.
And then they lost to O.J. Simpson, who scored both touchdowns.
That's just fair.
So the juice was loose.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
The juice was loose against the Hoosiers.
You're allowed to say it.
It was 14-3. O.J. scored both touchdowns.
That's quality game.
They could not stop the juice.
Yeah. So, Caleb, you've been following this team all year. Where have you seen some of this growth from a team that barely beat Ball State almost, or barely beat Ball State even, to now blowing out teams like Northwestern and teams like Rutgers?
The offense, of course, has grown, but the biggest growth I've seen so far this season has been with the defense, especially in their second half adjustments. First halves all season have been iffy. IU has stayed in a lot of the games and been able to be there for most of the game. But then the second half, the team just puts it together. All defense comes together, and I believe that's all in on Kane Womack. He's talked about how he's able to communicate with the defense. And when I talk to him, he actually goes around the locker room and talks to them, sees what they're seeing, instead of just staying with the coaches, and wants to know what's happening on the field. So I think that's a big thing that's really helped them in second half adjustments, which have led to these blowouts.
Kalen DeBoer has been on the other side of the ball offensively. The coordinator has just been phenomenal this year, and DeBoer has taken the offense from being what was mediocre under Mike DeBoer with Peyton Ramsey to being one of the best 15 offenses in the country. I would argue, other than Ohio State, and they have some guys named Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins, they're all right. Right, from what
they're
I've heard.
Decent players, yes.
They're okay at football. Other than that Ohio State offense, I would argue that Indiana has the best offense in the Big Ten. Better than Michigan, better than Penn State, better than Minnesota, better than Wisconsin. When you look at the pieces they have, skill positions.
Cooling you down because those takes are fire right now, man.
He's not completely wrong.
Just look at it.
Statistically, number 3.
In Indiana, no matter if Penix or Ramsey is the quarterback, they've been phenomenal offensively, and it's because they have talent and they have the guy in Kalen DeBoer that is better than almost anyone else in college football at putting the right players in the right positions to make the right plays.
So here's the thing. You say that this is an Indiana team, maybe second only to Ohio State, but they've had a close loss to Michigan State, close loss to Penn State. What's keeping this team from breaking through that next plane? Why can't, if they have the second best offense?
Love that Tom Allen isn't there.
Yes.
Breakthrough.
We have to go for breakthrough if it's an IU football one.
Yeah, but it's just been mistakes, as obviously. But I mean, like if you look at the Michigan State game, the defense couldn't stop a mediocre offense, and there was really costly penalties. I mean, Whop Phillier brings a punt return back 54 yards, and he gets called back for holding. Tywan Mullen, as great as he's been all year, had a critical penalty in that game. And just little stuff like that hurt them in that contest. And look at Penn State, it was the muff punt. The Whop Phillier fumbling on the play he got hurt on, that should have been a targeting. There's the fake punt that was absolutely atrocious. So it's just...
It wasn't a fake, according to Tom Allen.
It ended up being a fake, so we're going to call it a fake because that is the easier way to say it. So it's just mistakes, whether it be penalty-wise or just careless errors, have cost IU from getting that signature win so far.
So, Griffin, how much ground does IU need to make up to really reach that plane where they can compete and maybe beat a team like Michigan this upcoming weekend?
I think they've already shown they can. I think you saw that last week against Penn State. In my opinion, if you don't give up a 9-minute drive in the fourth quarter, that's an Indiana victory all the way. They were the better team in that game. I don't think it's a matter of when will it happen. It's not a how far off are they. It's a matter of which one of these weeks is it going to happen. But I still think the biggest stat to me all season long has been this. When you look at that Indiana-Ohio State matchup, Ohio State has over 50 4- and 5-star players on that roster as recruits in high school. Indiana had less than 10. Okay, you're trying to climb a tree in the Big Ten with a stepping stool, while Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, they have cranes, ladders, and mountains of people who are helping them get there. Indiana's trying to do it one step at a time. It takes time to do. That being said, they're closer now than they've been in a long, long time. So I think it's just a matter of continuing that recruiting momentum, continuing getting guys to not just buy into the program, but develop players. I think that's something Tom Allen is not getting the credit he deserves for how he's developed this defense over such a short span of a year. I mean, keep in mind, this is a team that missed 28 tackles against Ball State, and now they're looking like one of the better defenses in one of the best, not one of the best defensive conference in college football. So I think it's just their growth, their strengths. It really has been impressive to see how this team has grown all year long.
Yeah, on the growth of the defense, this is like, we can all agree, like, this hasn't been Tom Allen's best defense at Indiana. We can agree with that, right?
Yes.
Statistically, they're giving up 21.4 points per game. That is the best scoring defense Indiana's had since 1993. And when you look at this group that they have, this is by far not the most talented group Tom Allen's had in Bloomington on the defensive side of the ball. So the work that he and Kane Womack have done, it hasn't always been pretty, and they've had some ugly starts. It's better than what the eye test has showed, which is surprising to me.
Yeah. And so, Caleb, against Michigan, that's the biggest game that's left this season for the Indiana Hoosiers. What is IU going to need to do to put all the pieces together and actually come away with this win instead of just continuing to be close?
Well, both Griffin and Jack kind of touched on it earlier, but the big thing with defense, you've got to not get off the field. The two big losses in Michigan State and Penn State, last drive against Michigan State, they could not get that stop as to hold the lead as Michigan State went down and scored and ended up winning that game. Then Penn State, they were on the field for over 9 minutes in that game. That you're not going to win a close game when your defense has to stay on the field for 9 minutes when you're trying to claw your way back in one of the hardest environments in the country to play in. So you got to be able to get off the field. And secondly, they need to make sure Shea Patterson is a passer, but have to get pressure on him as well. You can't let him stand there, but you can't let him run on you like they have against Lewerke and against Clifford so far this season. Two quarterbacks are very similar to Shea, but in their ability to run while not wanting to pass, and that's been killer. So they need to contain him and then get off the field. Okay,
so now, Griffin, I'm going to send this back to you because you had the sort of hot take of you had the idea of flipping. You're going to flip this on its head. That's what I'm trying to say here. Big question that a lot of people want to know. Indiana was briefly ranked, fell out of it, but right on the cusp again. As of right now, with or without the Michigan win or loss and Purdue coming down the line, right now, should this Indiana team be ranked?
It's a tough question. It's a yes and no question, in my opinion. I think you look at the teams that are ranked 20 through 25th. I think Indiana's, without a doubt, way better than an Appalachian State. I think they're closer to being in a college football playoff and more deserving of a college football playoff. If the first 20 teams blow up tomorrow, you kind of do have to put Indiana over Appalachian State in that college football playoff just from the sense they play in the Big Ten East. That being said, their losses, all two of which are pretty good losses, just still haven't really beaten that definition of a great team yet. And that's why I think the committee doesn't really want to rank them there quite yet. If they're not ranked in the top 25, they're 26th, 27th. They're right there. They're just missing that signature win. If they're beating Michigan, there's no question to me they'll be ranked and have an excuse to be ranked the rest of the year. And I think that's what you're going to see this coming week.
If Indiana wasn't Indiana, if they were Iowa or Texas or Ohio State or Notre Dame or even like a Wisconsin, they're ranked right now.
Ooh.
There's no question about it.
I disagree.
Question.
I disagree because they've beaten Nebraska. I mean, I hate to give credit to other teams here, but I mean, this Indiana team was ranked because they played a lot of teams who were ranked at the beginning of the year who did not turn out well. Northwestern, dumpster fire. Nebraska, Scott Frost is terrible.
Somehow got an extension, though, out of all this.
And I agree with you that Indiana does not have that statement victory.
And I do think like a Texas maybe because America loves having Texas football ranked.
I mean, that's the point I make. I'm saying, look at Texas. Their resume is not great. I mean, Notre Dame's best win is on the road at a Louisville team that's not that great.
Yeah.
That's Notre Dame's best win over Louisville that just got their 6th win. So it's not like they have that much of a better resume against Indiana, and they lost at Georgia in a close game similar to how IU lost at Penn State, and they got their doors blown up open against Michigan similar to what Indiana did against Ohio State. I think IU and Notre Dame have extremely similar resumes, and if you flipped the names on the jerseys, Indiana would be ranked and Notre Dame wouldn't.
I will say, though, I'll throw this out there, of all the Big Ten teams that Indiana has beat, none of them are bowl eligible yet. And there's a decent chance that none of them will be.
That's the biggest problem.
There's a decent chance that IU will have not beaten a bowl-eligible team throughout their conference schedule.
And that's what makes the Michigan game so important. Because right now it's an historic season. It's a great season. But if they don't beat Michigan, they're not going to have that signature win. Going on the road to Lincoln and winning that game is huge just because Indiana hadn't won a game in front of 90,000 people in so long. But that Nebraska team's bad. So for this season to be remembered as well as it can be remembered for, they need that statement win. And Michigan is probably going to be that last chance because they're not going to play a team as good as a Michigan or a Penn State in the bowl game.
So with or without the win, Caleb, I still want to ask you, do you think IU should be ranked right now?
I'm going to say no. Going into last week with Penn State, I thought they deserved it, kind of for the optics of you only have 2 losses you play in the Big Ten. But after losing Penn State, no matter how close it is, you can't be ranked without a signature win or even a good win. So at the moment, no. And then kind of
Alabama's reached 5th without a good win.
But they're actually talented, Jack. The thing is, it's not just what you are and how you've played. It's what the talent on your team is. And IU is not at the same level as Alabama. I
agree with that.
I know you know that.
Yes.
But it's about also your personnel, not just what your record is.
At some point, wins and losses have to matter in college football. They don't.
And that's the only reason IU got
We got to move
ranked.
on, so that's all I'm going to leave it as.
That's a good way to wrap it up. I appreciate the brevity there, but we will carry that into a break. Coming up after the break, it's going to be game time for us, so make sure you stick with us. Plus, we'll hear from Stephen Walker. Mentioned him a little earlier. He'll be talking about IU's standout wide receiver, Whop Philyor, so make sure you stick with us. Welcome back to the toss-up. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're going to send it over to our very own Stephen Walker, who's got a lot about Whop Philyor, IU's standout receiver on the season. So, Stephen, what do you have for us?
Well, Drew, like we mentioned, Indiana football is off to their best 10-game start since 1993, and their 7 wins was good enough to have them ranked in the AP poll for the first time since 1994 last week. And a large part of their success has to go to this offense. Through their 10 games, they have scored 30 points 8 times, including a 6-game streak that was snapped last weekend at Penn State. And even in that game, they scored 27. 27 points on a top 10 team where they only lost by 7. And had that defense not allowed the 9-minute drive in the 4th, IU very well could have left Happy Valley with a monumental win. Well, now the focus shifts to another ranked team, the number 13 Michigan Wolverines. Now, their last 2 games in Bloomington have resulted in overtime losses for IU, but this year's just got a different vibe. Now, I could easily say Peyton Ramsey has been this team's MVP. He came in for Michael Penix numerous times this season and has gone above and beyond, winning huge road games against Maryland and Nebraska. And then he followed that up with a career-high 371 passing yards against Penn State. Now, obviously, Ramsey has been great. He's silenced all the doubters, but it's one of his receivers that has just shattered expectations and emerged as one of the best receivers in the Big Ten, and that is junior receiver Whop Philyor. Now, playing alongside Nick Westbrook, not many people might have seen Whop's explosive year. Well, nobody except for me, who on this very show earlier in the season predicted he would have a big season, along with that Nebraska win. So thanks to Jack for apologizing for that. Now, Whop has only eclipsed 100 yards twice in his freshman and sophomore year, but he already has 3 such games this year, including a career-high 182 yards against Rutgers. And a lot of his success has come on some short passes as he's able to, slip away from tacklers for some huge gains. And that's led him to 3rd in the Big Ten in receiving. Now, currently, Philyor is in concussion protocol after a helmet-to-helmet hit that should have resulted in targeting, like they mentioned, against the Nittany Lions. Now, injuries suck, but they happen. But every single person is rooting for a speedy recovery and that he's on the field again soon. Now, the offense kept running pretty smoothly in his absence last weekend, but having Whop on the field will give the Hoosiers their best shot at knocking off the Wolverines, and it will be their best opportunity to get their first bowl win in many years. Drew, back to you.
Thank you, Stephen. A opportunity it is. I couldn't have said it any better myself. So now we're going to move on to our very own games here. We've watched IU football games all year, but now it's our turn to have some. So this game is called No Repeats. We've had it on the show before. It's pretty simple. Basically, the way this is going to work is I'm going to give you all a question. We'll go in order, like a rotating order, and you cannot repeat a previous answer to the question. So, Griffin, I'm going to start this one off with you. Tell me this year who has been IU's best offensive player?
And it's simple. It's Peyton Ramsey. And I think, you can make the argument of he's not even the best quarterback on the team, and it's true, but he has come up big when he has had to. He has done his job, and he's exceeded expectations all season long. Can we just go back to a year ago where people were cursing out Peyton Ramsey, saying he's the worst quarterback in the Big Ten? We want Penix. We want anybody else. Begging for a freshman transfer quarterback with 0 reps, Tuttle, to be our savior. And now it's looking like he is arguably competing with Penix for who should start next year. I mean, he has done his job. He's fulfilled expectations, and I think he's easily the most important offensive player on this team.
I'd still say Penix is the better quarterback, but Peyton Ramsey has shown some really great growth this year that I did not think was possible.
But you can't use Ramsey.
You can't rate
that was
mine.
Ramsey. I'm just saying that.
That's mine. You can't have
Mine
it.
is, as one Stephen Walker said, it is Whop Phillier. He's the guy that makes this offense go. He gets them into a rhythm early in games with short passes. He can catch balls at all 3 levels, the short game, the intermediate, and has become a really good deep threat for a guy that's not very tall. You think about, Westbrook, Hale, Freifogel, all this size. Whop just burns you with his speed. It doesn't matter how small he is. He is the most dynamic player on the IU offense, the best player on the IU offense, and the most important player on the Hoosier offense.
All right, Caleb, toughest leg right here.
Well, I'm kind of glad I got left the crumbs because it gives me a chance to cheat just a little bit. It wouldn't be a toss-up with me on it if I don't.
That's fair.
So I'm actually going to go Simon Stepniak with a little bit of cheat of also Coy Cronk, who only played 4 games and then got injured, because this offensive line has been torn apart throughout the season. It's been a ragtag group at times, with a true freshman, Matthew Bedford, having to play huge minutes. And just Stepniak and then Coy helping on the sideline has really held this team together. They've given up the least amount of sacks in the Big Ten so far. So it's been a big part of IU's offensive identity. It has been more than what anyone for the Hoosiers could have expected once Coy went down.
I'm going to chime in here really quick. I'm sorry, but the big credit to that offensive line is Stevie Scott. A lot of people don't think he got better from last season, but the truth is, if you look at his technique and how he runs the football, when he gets off a tackle, he actually rolls towards the direction the ball is moving, giving the Hoosiers an extra yard or 2. It doesn't seem like a lot. Very Jordan Howard-esque, yes. It doesn't seem like a lot. That's an extra 1 to 2 yards. That's what kept them in the game against Penn State, is that nickel and dime. And that's what you have to do when you have Peyton Ramsey on the field. You have to nickel and dime it. You can't throw down the field 25 yards like Penix can. So I think Stevie Scott, alongside that offensive line, deserves a ton of credit for IU's success.
Yeah. Now we're going to switch it up to the defense. Jack, this time you get to go first.
Yes.
Who is the best defensive player on the team?
I get to take the easy one, Tywone Mullen. He has been such a great presence as just a freshman. He didn't have his first really major playing time until Michigan State, and he shut down Darrell Stewart, a really good receiver for the Spartans. He's only given up 4 receptions going into the Penn State game so far this year. He has locked down virtually everyone that he's had to cover. He basically takes half the field away from the opposing offense. And this kid's only a freshman. He's going to be so much fun to watch as he continues, and he's been great this season.
All right, Caleb, who do you got? Not Tywone.
Not Tywone, unfortunately. It might surprise Jack because he sits next to me and hears me complain about this person all the time. Not Dwan Burgess, don't worry.
I'm about to say.
But Micah McFadden is going to be my pick.
That also does surprise me.
That does surprise me, of course. But he is a middle linebacker, smaller guy, but has done a great job filling in the middle and getting behind the line. It might surprise you. He has 7.5 tackles for loss, which leads the team so far this season. So I give him all the credit in the world. He's playing a very hard position, a little undersized, and he's done a great job so far.
Mine's Ziemba. I think he's been awesome outside the edge. I think he's been able to pressure Big Ten quarterbacks in a way we haven't seen IU been able to do in the past few years. He fits perfect into Tom Allen's system of aggressive defensive style with also just smart defensive plays. He was the reason I think they kept the momentum going in Hoosiers' favor in that second half of that Penn State game. I think you see him came big against Michigan State. He plays in those huge moments, and I think he's going to be key for Indiana against Michigan this week.
And also, just real quick, that hair.
Okay.
It's fire.
Well, since you seem very excited about the hair, so I guess you could use a hair flip as this example, but the biggest defining moment for IU football this season, I'd be a little surprised to go for the hair flip, but Caleb, this one to you.
No. I might be a Debbie Downer with this one. The fake punt that wasn't a fake punt that might be a fake punt.
You really are being a Debbie
I'll
Downer.
be a Debbie Downer with that one. That kind of encapsulates what IU season has been to this point. It's been great. They were this close to beating Penn State in Happy Valley, but mistakes have cost them in those games, and that's a glaring one.
All right, Griffin and Jack, round out the segment pretty quickly.
I hate to be this guy. It wasn't that Penn State game. It wasn't the punt that cost him. That was the 9-minute drive that cost him in the fourth.
Yes,
quarter. That's
but-
what cost him the game. And here's the most defining moment for me. I think you go back to that Nebraska game. It's the fact that it seemed like they were going to go in that same route where here we go, now it's time for Indiana to lose 4 straight in Big Ten play, and they didn't. They fought their way back. They won on the road in really, really loud and tough Nebraska environment. I don't care if Nebraska's not good. That's still a tough place to play. That was a huge moment.
Yeah, I'm cheating here. It's absolutely the Nebraska game. There's no other way to get around it. To be able to come back after the way the first half of that game ended, to where IU was in control, then Ramsey throws a pick, which was basically a bad luck pick that bounced off of Watt Villier into the hands of the Nebraska guy. The Cornhuskers go down and score, take the lead, lost all momentum. To be able to bounce back, win on the road, that's probably the best college football environment I've ever been in. And that Nebraska team sucks, which, praising Nebraska, that's a cool environment, but just really, really, that's something we haven't seen from IU football to win in an atmosphere like that, even if Nebraska is bad.
The game's called No Repeat, Jack.
Yeah, geez, I didn't even cheat that
Come
one.
on, man.
It's
Come
all right.
on.
We're running low on time, so I got to let you slide on that one. So really quick fire, 5 words. That's all I'm giving you. Not even like the 20 seconds. 5 words.
5 words.
All right.
That's not a good one.
This one's actually numbers, so I'll make it even easier for you. Griffin, what is IU's final record this season?
I'm going to keep it simple. I think they get 9 wins. I think they do lose to Michigan. I think they do lose the bowl game, but I think 9 wins is still a huge thing for this program.
All right, Jack.
I think IU has the best chance to beat Michigan that they've had in a very long time. That being said, I'm not picking it until it actually happens. It's kind of like the Cubs winning the World Series. It's just I can't visibly see it happening, but I think they do get to 9 wins, win a bowl game also for the
A
first
lot
time
longer
since
than
91.
5 words, but I at least understand
Yes.
the number. Caleb?
Hate to be that guy, but I'm going to agree. 9 wins, and I don't know what the losses are. I was told I don't have to do math on
But
these
you have
type
them
of
beating
shows.
Michigan, though.
But I don't always have them beating everyone else. They got to mess it up at some point. It's an IU team, so.
All right, well, that does do it for our show this week. And with that, we will wrap up the season here on the Toss-Up. But before we go, we want to give one special thank you to everyone working behind the scenes each and every week who have helped make this show run as smoothly as possible all season. And one more shout-out to our very own IUS-TV legend, Jessica Jopic, who will be finishing up her IUS-TV career in the control room tonight. And, of course, none of this would be possible without you, the viewers. So be sure to continue the discussion on our Twitter page at IUS-TV Sports and on Facebook at IUS-TV Sports as well. You can always give any suggestions for the show and ask any questions you might have. So toss it up, find out if we'll catch it. We'll see you next season.